What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another business study session, the lockdown sessions. Today, we're going to be looking at operational objectives. And it's all about operations, it's how services are um, conducted, and it's how products are made. And within operations, we need to understand operational targets. We need to understand how we add value and also what affects operational objectives internally and externally. So first of all, operations. Now, operations. Let me give you an example. So it's you look at a factory where they make bottles, soft drinks. They require raw materials. They'll need little baby bottles, tiny little things like this, caps, labels. They bring everything in, and then it goes through a process, right? So this tiny baby bottle, which is it's sort of dense plastic, eventually gets heated up and blown into an actual bottle. Liquid gets poured inside, gets labeled, gets capped, goes into a pallet, gets stored, and then sent over to their customers. And through this process, there's different machines. There's quality points of control. There are it could be a long process or it could be a short process. So in the case of bottles, you sometimes have something called a filler and capper, which fills them with liquid. And before that, you have something that gives shape to the bottles, which is called a stretch blow molder. And this is what gives shape to the bottles. Maybe you can guess which bottle this is. Is named after a doctor. So operational objectives, yes, we're looking at how things get made, and when we look at their objectives, we can also call them targets. But when we learn about objectives, these are medium, short, and they are smart. So they're specific, measurable, achievable, agreeable, realistic, and time bound. Now, which are these targets we need to know of? And these are targets that you can apply to any case study. So I use an acronym to remember these operational targets, and it's feed, sick. So these are the operational targets, and I don't mean that you're feeding someone who is sick, but I mean that each one of those letters will represent a word. So we got 8. The first one, F, this is flexibility, and it's an operational target, and it's about factories. It's about the process of making a product and being flexible in the approach. So being able to adapt maybe to the time of year. So if you're making ice cream, you make more in summer, less in winter, and you can always make a particular product more than another. Maybe there's demand for vanilla and there's no demand for chocolate. So being flexible. And it's two key words when we're looking at flexibility. It's in terms of operational objectives is to do with volume and demand, making sure that the volume we're making meets the demand and it doesn't go above. Otherwise, we're going to end up with many products going to waste, or flooding the market with our product and potentially devaluing our brand. Then we have E. So this is for efficiency. Now, efficiency is there are different measurements of efficiency, and we can have capacity utilization, which is out of our maximum possible output, how much are we making? So if a line of production makes 30,000 bottles an hour, then out of that, how much are we making? If we're making half, if we're making 15,000 bottles an hour, then we're utilizing our line of production is running at 50% capacity utilization. So how much are we making out of our maximum capacity? That is capacity utilization. Another measurement is how much are you producing per unit of labor? So you just take all the units you made and divide it by the number of people there are. You know how much everyone is making on average. Now this follows a law of diminishing returns. So eventually, if the factory keeps employing more and more people, at some point, people are not going to have anything to do because either they don't have tools to work with, or there's no space. So the return per employee eventually will diminish if you start employing too many people. So that's another way to measure efficiency. So we also need to understand how we can improve efficiency. Some keywords with efficiency sometimes are 0-hour contracts. That also helps with efficiency, so that you can employ just the right amount of people that you need when you need them, and not to have an excess of people that might not have anything to do during the winter time, and they're just they might just be sleeping at work. So that's the idea of efficiency. With the other E is to do with environment, but it's not necessarily the environment in terms of the weather, but it's about the pressure groups that from a variety of different backgrounds. We might be looking at the people who are concerned about the environment, maybe someone who's concerned about pollution, animal rights, and a variety of others. And this is the environment that might change our methods of production. Maybe we won't produce in this country anymore. We might put our factory somewhere else where regulation is a little bit more lenient in terms of pollution. You got examples of many products that are made elsewhere, where labor gets exploited, where raw materials, resources get exploited, and it's done there because here, where we are in the UK, this will be prohibited. So this is different ways in which businesses will react to the environment. They can also become more sustainable, more eco-friendly, and it's about the environment, and it's the response to consumers, pressure groups. You can probably use the stakeholder mapping to help you point out what to do with pressure groups. So in one we have interest, in the other one we have sort of power and influence. So if a pressure group has no power, no interest, then you just monitor them. You just keep an eye on them, monitor them. On the other hand, if they have a lot of power and a lot of interest, then you got to manage them closely. Greenpeace is one of those groups that many manufacturers in the UK tend to manage closely because they are very proactive in their approach. The other blocks, again, from stakeholder management, you'll have keep informed. If they have a lot of interest but no power, just keep them informed so that they're part of this process, so they're acknowledged. And the other one here is this is kind of pressure that you get sometimes, not necessarily from pressure groups. This could be from the government, things that you need to do. They have a lot of power. They can close your business down. However, they might not have much interest in what you're doing as long as you are obeying the rules and regulations. So therefore, you just sort of keep satisfied. If you gotta meet a particular regulation, rule, health and safety, then you do so. Just keep satisfied. So this stakeholder mapping can help you with understanding the environment. We then have D. D is for dependability. And again, operations, they depend. You depend on the supplier of raw materials, because when you make products, you want to react quickly to the market, but you cannot react quickly to the market if you cannot depend on your supplier. So there's an element of dependability that goes from the consumer, that depends on your business, from your business that you depend on suppliers. So there's an element of dependability, and how, to what extent do you have many suppliers, or is there only one supplier? You might end up, or maybe you are the only buyer and there are many suppliers. You might gain a leverage and ask for lower prices. You might end up with a monopsony where there's only one buyer, and therefore you can have more control and ask for better service, better quality, lower prices. So that's the idea with dependability. It's the dependency, level of trust and dependency in terms of other businesses that supply raw materials, products, and also dependability in terms of how your customers depend on you. Then you have SICQ. So we have S, speed of response. So this is one of the key points in terms of how businesses have grown in first world, not first, in developed countries, where people are more cash rich and time poor, and they want things quick. They don't want to wait, so they're willing to pay a little bit extra just to receive their meal, 10 minutes earlier. So if you look on Deliveroo, Uber Eats, now, just by paying a little bit more, they will provide your food a little bit quicker than otherwise. Amazon, through Amazon Prime, you can get things next day. So there are certain features that are added on in terms of production to benefit the consumer, and the consumer, at times they will pay for it, other times it will just be given for free, just to, I guess, to build some relationship with customers, to build some rapport and dependability. So S, yes, speed of response. How quickly can businesses respond to consumers? We have I is for innovation. Now this is not coming up with something. This is not creating a new technology, but it's taking things that are out there and just changing them slightly, or maybe putting them together in a different format. So to innovate and bring something that it's different and new in the market. So this is what we mean by innovation. Just think about your phone, cameras, mobile phones. We had both before, but someone put them together into one and came up with something new. And this is innovation. And this is when we think about operations, things we can innovate in, different ways in which we can look at our operations. We don't have to just have some very rigid form of operations, but we can modify our operations. This is C for costs, looking at fixed variable costs, understanding how as a business grows bigger, operations might require more raw materials, so therefore you might be able to get lower costs because you're buying in bulk. And you're looking at how much are you contributing to paying for your fixed costs. How are you offering, are you being able to pass some of these savings onto the customers by lowering prices and so forth. And finally, Q is quality. When we look at operations, the word out there is quality, and quality management, ensuring that we provide the right product with what's been described to a high quality, which will help retain customers. Now, these are operational targets, some of the basic ones, sort of key ones to note, that might help you with any case study that you might be looking at. Then another area with operations is adding value. Each one of those is a form of adding value. What do we mean by adding value? We take a product and then we sell it at some kind of price. So I buy this bottle for £1 and I sell it for £1.50. So what sort of added value am I doing here? Maybe I can charge more because I'm taking it to a place where they don't have this. So this is a form of adding value. Or maybe I'm adding value because the way I'm selling the product. Maybe I'm just a bit more charming, or maybe I speak the language that someone else doesn't speak and I'm able to communicate with them. I'm able to build a relationship. So these are ways in which businesses can add value. And again, each one of them, such as speed of response, innovating, creating dependability, efficiency, there are ways of adding value. How do we calculate adding value or value added? We can calculate it by taking away we have our total revenue minus the cost of buying the raw materials or products that we're going to sell. So is the revenue, which is what we get from selling the product, minus the cost of buying these raw materials. Cost of raw materials. And this gives us, or it's also the cost of if it's not a raw material, maybe you're buying the product already made and you're just selling it for more because you provide a better service. So it could be the cost of raw materials or the cost of buying this product. Not to be confused with contribution. So contribution is the amount of money that you are generating that contributes to pay for fixed costs. And that is revenue minus cost, minus variable costs. So let's think about it. McDonald's, for example. The average cost of a meal in McDonald's is £1. And that's including the burger. We're looking at variable costs. The average variable cost of a meal is £1, and this is your patty, your burger, the bag, and they sell it for an average of £4. So the difference between both, between the selling price, which is £4, and the cost, the variable costs, £1 is 3. That's the difference. Now that is contribution, because we can use that to contribute to paying our fixed costs. Fixed costs for a restaurant would be things like advertising, the rent, or in the case of McDonald's, is maybe the cost of the franchise, which is $400,000 a year for having the rights to use the logo and the access to the raw materials and machinery. So again, not to confuse it with contribution. So added value is just how we are adding value, whereas contribution is what we're contributing to paying fixed costs. Now, what affects our operational objectives, operational targets, internally and externally? Externally, first of all, we think about the climate. Are we in a recession? Are we in a boom? If we're in a recession, people are less likely to spend. So we might need to be flexible and adapt and reduce the amount of units that we're making, and maybe use a different method of production. So whereas internally, things that affect production is, the wear and tear of machinery, the dependability on our suppliers. It could be the knowledge of our workforce, the level of education from our employees that would certainly have an effect on how we're making products and how our machines are running. Now, something that I touched on, I was the operational methods of production when we're looking at operations. So we have the basic ones are mass production. This is making large amounts, large quantities of the same product. And this requires sort of labor, that it's sort of labor division, where people do one task and they specialize in that task, and it just goes on and on and on. Then we have the opposite end, which is job production, where you have people who are, it's very labor intensive in comparison. So mass production is machinery intensive, machines that work night and day, whereas job production is labor intensive, and they anything they do is quite unique and requires specialists. Think about art, think about wedding dresses. You require people who are specialized, and every single piece they make is unique. It's like a tailor suit. It's tailored to you, to how your size and the way your body is, which is very different from one of those suits that is mass produced. So again, one key difference between both: mass production, we're looking at mainly machinery, capital intensive. Capital in this instance means machinery, or we're looking at the other extreme, job production, which involves mainly labor intensive and high skilled people. And then something in the middle is batch production, and this is making small or medium quantities of different products. So you can think of a Coca-Cola factory making a batch of Sprite, then a batch of Fanta, then a batch of Diet Coke. So making batches. So within those methods of production, we also have lean methods of production, and this is sort of a Japanese method of production, and which is kind of grown and is now something known worldwide, which is applied in many factories. So here in the UK, they apply lean methods of production, and that involves just in time. So buying raw materials just as when you need them, and not just piling sugar for a year or a month, but only buying the sugar you need to make the products for the next couple of days, for the next week. And that is, for example, what Pepsi does when they bottle their drinks. They only buy sugar for the next week. They don't buy sugar for a month. And that means that they're more liquid. They'll have money in the bank rather than in a pile of sugar. So there's some benefits to it. The disadvantages, they're not able to get economies of scale in terms of purchasing economies of scale because they are not buying in big bulks. Then other important lean methods of production is Kaizen, which is constant improvement and putting quality not just as the responsibility of the total quality management team or the quality points of control, but Kaizen means constant improvement and that everybody is involved in the quality and responsible for the quality, not necessarily the quality management team or the points of control. So everybody's responsible for quality. So therefore, you, when you make something in the factory or if you're managing a machine, you are responsible for the quality of products that are going through you at all times. And the idea is to minimize waste and improve efficiency. So it's another important point here when we're looking at operational objectives and methods of production. So, and just to recap, we have mass production, also known as flow. Then we have batch production, which is small, medium amounts of different products made. Then we have a job production, which is sort of unique items being made, very labor intensive. And the other methods of production, we look at lean methods, and this will be just in time, buying raw materials as and when you need them. And we have Kaizen methods of production, which is constant improvement, where the responsibility of quality is not just of a specific team, but is of every single member in the factory. Great, if you can answer the questions below, and have a great day.